Hello everyone. Today we will be learning another lesson, and that would be the kinds of quantitative research design. I know that you have already studied about the research designs for qualitative. So this time we will be focusing on the research designs for quantitative. But before that, we have to define what is research design. On your left side, you will see the definition of the research design. As you will see there, research design is the overall strategy that you are going to use once you undergo your research studies. You need to focus on what would be the appropriate research design for you so that you could come up to the best and most effective way of investigating your. Okay, since we have talked about the definition for the research design, now let's move on to the next slide, which is all about the categories, or should I say the classifications for quantitative research design. And these are the experimental and non-experimental. For the experimental research design, it will allow the researcher to identify the cause and effect relationship between the variables, and also we can consider or should I say distinguish the placebo effects from treatment effects. And for that, how can we better explain this? For the experimental research design, there are three types of that, and that is true experimental, quasi-experimental, and the pre-experimental. As we go along with this video, we will be discussing further each of the types of experimental design, and we can also provide you some examples for that. And however, for your information, if you need more details about it, you can go to the YouTube channel website and look for more information about the experimental research design. Now, for the non-experimental research design, which is also known as a descriptive, it is the label given to the study wherein the researcher cannot control, manipulate, or alter the predictor variable of the subject. However, there are times that we can make use of the survey, which is one of the types of the non-experimental, as well as the correlation, comparative design, ex post facto research design, as well as evaluative research, and the methodological. So as we go along with this video, we will also be discussing further each of the types of non-experimental. Okay, this time we will be talking about the experimental research design, which is the true experimental. Let's go ahead and listen to this clip.
Hypotheses that claim a causal relationship are very interesting, but also very bold, and especially in the social sciences, very susceptible to alternative explanations, or threats to internal validity. Experimental research designs maximize internal validity. They're referred to as true experiments, also known as randomized controlled trials, or RCTs. They're science's best defense against alternative explanations for causal claims. The three essential ingredients of a true experiment are manipulation, comparison, and random assignment. Let's start with manipulation. If you want to show a causal relation, the strongest possible empirical demonstration is one where the cause is under your control. If you can create a situation where the cause is present, a causal relation is more plausible because you can show that it precedes the effect, eliminating an ambiguous temporal precedence. What about comparison? Well, causality is even more plausible if you can compare to a situation where the cause is absent, showing that the effect does not occur when the cause is absent. This also eliminates the threat of maturation. Think of the relation between violent imagery and aggression. Let's say I measure how many hours a week a group of 10-year-olds plays violent video games and how aggressive they are, according to their teacher. Suppose I find a positive relationship. Kids who play more violent video games tend to be more aggressive. I can argue that playing video games increases aggression, but of course I can also argue that aggressive children seek out more violent stimuli. I could have approached this problem differently and encouraged a subgroup of children to play a violent video game, say GTA 5, for a total of 10 hours in 1 week, and deny the other group any access to violent imagery for the same period of time. Now, if I find that the children who've been denied access to violent imagery are less aggressive than the group who played the violent game regularly, then I have a stronger case for the causal claim that violent imagery causes aggression. Of course, it's not a very strong case, since there are still many alternative explanations for the difference in aggression between these two groups. What if the kids in the video game group were more aggressive to start out with? What if there were less girls in this group, or more older children? This is where randomization comes in. I can randomly assign children to the experimental condition with heavy video play, or the control condition with no access to violent imagery. And I can do this by flipping a coin, heads for the experimental condition, tails for the control condition. On average, this process will ensure an equal distribution over the two groups in terms of gender, but also in terms of age, previous aggression, hair color, shoe size. I can go on. On average, randomization ensures that there is no systematic difference between the groups other than the difference in the independent variable, the cause variable. Of course, in any one particular study, it is possible, entirely due to chance, that randomization fails and we end up, for example, with more girls in the control group, possibly explaining why this group is less aggressive. The only way to be sure randomization worked is to replicate a study and show that the results are consistent each time. So to summarize, manipulation ensures the cause precedes the effect. Comparison to a control group ensures the effect did not occur naturally, and random assignment ensures that there are no other systematic differences between the groups that could explain the effect. Replication is generally not considered a characteristic of a true experiment, but it is required to ensure randomization actually works.
Okay, after discussing the true experimental, if you have questions, let me know after the video. So this time, at this moment, let's go ahead and discuss the quasi-experimental. Let's go ahead and watch the clip that I have provided for you.
A quasi-experiment is designed a lot like a true experiment, except that in the quasi-experimental design, the participants are not randomly assigned to experimental groups. In a true experiment, research participants have an equal chance of being assigned to any condition of the independent variable, the one being manipulated by the researcher, that is involved in the study. So, for instance, if a researcher was examining the effects of caffeine on reading comprehension, she might randomly assign participants to one of three independent variable conditions: those who drink 1 cup of soda, 2 cups of soda, or no soda. She might then assess each person's reading comprehension abilities following exposure to the independent variable. In a true experiment, each participant who volunteered would have an equal chance of being assigned to any of the three groups. Quasi-experiments are employed when the researcher is interested in independent variables that cannot be randomly assigned. Usually this happens when the independent variable in question is something that is an innate characteristic of the participants involved. Let's look at a couple of examples to help illustrate the point. Here are 2 examples of simple quasi-experimental designs that will help you see the difference between a true experiment and a quasi-experiment. Dr. Jones is a personality expert who studies the impact that personality traits have on intelligence. For the purposes of her current research project, she is interested in examining the IQ scores of people who score highly in each of the big five personality factors. Each of the 5 personality factors are a quasi-independent variable. Personality traits are inherent to each person, so random assignment cannot be used. Participants would initially be assigned to groups based on their personality assessment score across each of the 5 personality factors. Now that Dr. Jones has her participant group assignments, she can examine the impact that personality factors may have on intelligence. If a true experimental design were used, each participant would be randomly assigned to each personality group regardless of whether or not they possess those personality traits, which would not really address the question that Dr. Jones is asking.
Okay, we're done talking about the quasi-experimental. Again, if you have questions, please let me know. So this moment, we will be showing you a clip about pre-experimental research design. Let's go ahead and check it out.
Pre-experiments. In addition to the lack of randomization of participants, pre-experimental design is characterized by no control group. Because of this, it cannot be used to infer causality. This type of design is best for descriptive studies. Pre-test, post-test design is one type of pre-experiment. It allows us to see if participant responses are different after a manipulation than before the manipulation. However, we can never be sure that the difference is due to the manipulation alone, since we don't have a control group. The control group would be able to tell us how much change there would be from the pre-test to the post-test without the manipulation. For example, it is possible that the simple passage of time introduces some other variable to cause a change in responses. So, with pre-experimental designs, all we can show is if there was some sort of change, but we can't be sure of what caused the change. For example, say we want to know if students' knowledge of a subject increases after a lesson. We can test the student's level of knowledge before the lesson and again after the lesson to see if it is increased, but we wouldn't be able to say that any change was due to the lesson itself.
After watching the discussion about true experimental, quasi-experimental, and pre-experimental, let's go ahead and talk about the non-experimental and what we call the descriptive research design, which comprises of the following: survey, correlation, ex post factor research design, comparative design, evaluative research, and the methodological. Let's go ahead and check the video for the survey. If you have questions, let me know after the end of this session. that the provided video for you for the survey research design were able to explain the how survey research design will help you in your research output. Now let's go ahead and proceed with the correlation, which is also part of the non-experimental research design. Let's go ahead and check the video. Okay, so I know that we are done discussing the survey and the correlation. If you have questions about it, let me know after the whole session of this video. Let's go ahead and talk about the third research design for non-experimental, and that is the ex post facto research design, which investigates the causal relationship. This is actually also called the after the fact research design, which is a category in which this investigation starts after the fact has occurred without interference from the researcher. That's why we call it causal relationships. So most of the researches about this, it talks about the social science in context in which it is not possible or acceptable to manipulate the characteristics of the human participants. That's why sometimes we usually relate it with qualitative research design. However, this is we will be basing it in an ex post facto studies. It is also often applied to a substitute, or it is often applied as a substitute, should I say, for a true experimental research, so that we could test the hypothesis about the cause and effect relationship, or in situation which is not practical or ethically acceptable to apply the full protocol if we will be using true experimental. That's why we make use of the non-experimental research design, which is under ex post facto. So I hope that you're able to understand that. Okay, we're done discussing the ex post facto research design. Let's go ahead and move on to the comparative design, which is the fourth type of non-experimental research design. The comparative research design is used to compare two distinct groups on the basis of selected attributes such as the knowledge level or perceptions. Example, if we will be discussing or studying the educational system of two countries, let's say the educational system of the Philippines and the educational system of Japan. So we will be observing what are the differences of the two groups. So in other words, if we will be making use of the comparative design, and definitely if we will be comparing Philippines to Japan, we have to go to Japan so that we could observe and conduct the investigation there as well. Okay, so if you have further clarifications, please let me know. So let's go ahead and move on to the next research design for non-experimental, and that is the evaluative research design. Evaluative research is it seeks to assess or judge in some way, providing information about something other than that might be gleaned in mere observation or investigation of relationships. In other words, for the evaluative research design, it is used to determine the impact of the social intervention. Let's say we have created a program and we want to make sure that if it's really effective or not, then we will be making use of the evaluative research for us to know if the program that we have created is effective and has an impact to the specific to the respondents or to the participants. Okay, so we're almost done discussing the types of non-experimental research design. Let's move on to the last type, which is the methodological research design. For the methodological research design, it is a process that we use to develop the validity and reliability of the instruments to measure a construct used as variables in research. So typically this is just a test for us to make sure that the instrument that we will be using is effective, and for us to know if the instrument that we use is effective, we will be using the methodological research design. So again, if you have further questions, let me know. So again, that ends our session for today. I hope you learned a lot for the topic about the quantitative research designs. I would like also just to say thank you for the videos that I have used in the YouTube website, and for my students, if you have questions, please let me know, and then after this video we're going to have our activity and consultation regarding clarifications about this topic. Thank you.